Welcome to Leave a Legacy live stream. Yes, another episode of our series, and I'm your host, Joby Matthew. And today we're going to be exploring a question every leader should wrestle with. What if true leadership wasn't about applying one fixed style, but it's all about adapting to the people, the moment, and the mission? So today we got a special guest, especially because he's in my home ground, in my home base, that is in the Middle
Yeah.
East. From Dubai is none other than Arnd Herrmann, and I had the opportunity, or have the opportunity, to work with him, especially from Beyond Success, and as he leads the Alpha initiative in the Middle East. So we've had multiple conversations of how can Beyond Success, which is a John Maxwell initiative, and how do Alpha work together. And we've been bridging the world, we've been bridging especially from two different continents, and sharing case studies. And it's just an amazing opportunity that we get to do that. And especially when he shares that he's in Dubai, and he gets to be in Bahrain, he gets to be in Saudi, and all those amazing opportunities, and spreading God's love and message. So he has walked this journey that he's going to be sharing with us, leading global teams at Siemens, SAP, GE, Etihad, and Expo 2020. Now he's a managing director at Eagle Rock Marketing, and he shared why is it Eagle Rock. So maybe he might share why he named it Eagle Rock. And he's also the regional director for Alpha Gulf. He combines marketplace excellence with kingdom impact. And that's what we love about marketplace pastors. And he's definitely a leader and a pastor in the marketplace. And his life story, from a football hooligan to faith-driven, is proof that leadership transformation is possible. So in this session, Arnd is going to be unpacking that myth of one size fits all leadership, right? That's just a myth. And the 20-70-10 principle from Jack Welch, and the situational leadership by Ken Blanchard, and how to lead through connection and not control. And the last thing and most important, why your leadership must match the task, not just the person. So folks, please grab a pen, grab a notebook, and whether you lead in business, ministry, or your own family, this conversation will help you lead with courage, wisdom, and impact. So, folks, let's give a big round virtual Legacy X leadership. Welcome to Arnd Herrmann. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, thank you so much. We didn't talk about you sharing my hooligan background, but okay, I forgive you. We Christian brothers, so it's okay.
Absolutely. We want to hear all about the hooliganism and the transformation, because I'm sure there would be a switch from you. And talking about the switch, let's actually go back, right, Aunt? I mean, let's look back 40 years. Out of that, 35 years in corporate, 5 running your own business. What's your key leadership learning from all this experience that you've accumulated? What's your key leadership learning?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Joby, for inviting me. I'm super excited to join you and this community virtually all the way from Dubai. By the way, it's not 50 degrees in Dubai at the moment. It's a very pleasant 39 degrees, so it's not as hot as some people perceive. But that aside, key learning. Well, I had the privilege to lead many people. I had the privilege to be led by many people. But what you said earlier already, and we kind of gave the session this title, one size doesn't fit all. I've seen many people who claim to be leader, who maybe call themselves managers, to apply one style and one style only. They either micromanage or they macromanage. And then that's what they do with everyone who reports into them. And that's just not the right way. Sorry, there's no black and white here. This is really the white. One size doesn't fit all. Every individual in the marketplace, in our personal capacities, has a different background, has different needs, has different circumstances, has a different mood in the day. And we as leaders, we need to adapt to the requirements, to the environment, and to the circumstances of those people who have been put into our responsibility to look after them. So one size doesn't fit all, especially in this global world where we very often work with people not typically from our background, but from other countries. And then it becomes even more complex. So one size doesn't fit all is, I would say, the key learning. I had many rather painful experiences because I ignored this requirement. And luckily, I also had some good experiences where I did apply different ways of leading, depending on the person I had in my team.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that, right? Because I know you had that bad managers experience, but also the inspiring leaders. And that's that. And it's so amazing that through our journey, it's all learning experiences. So good, bad, it's all learning, right? And how you've
Absolutely.
and how you've come to the conclusion that one size doesn't fit all, and especially in this diverse world. So that's beautiful how you put it, Arndt. And now let's define this good and bad leadership, right? Because you've worked across multiple countries. In your eyes, what distinguishes an awful manager from a truly inspiring leader? And would love if you could provide us some stories and some examples.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. First of all, in this case, I wouldn't paint it as black and white. It sounds as if manager is bad and leader is good. There are really good managers and there are really bad leaders. But there is a huge difference between a manager and somebody who can really call himself a leader. So my definition, and this is my humble experience, after having also worked with quite a few amazing leaders and managers. A manager, and we need managers, okay, processes. Okay, a manager, John Maxwell would say, is goal-focused. A manager gets a direction, gets a task, gets a project, gets a certain budget, okay, and then the manager processes and makes sure that the team members who are part of his team deliver. From my experience, managers sometimes intend to make it about themselves. I'm the manager, I need to shine, I need to foster my career, I need to make sure that I look good. And that's the same sometimes for bad leaders. A leader, okay, they create the future. They create the journey. They take the team on an adventure. And again, quoting John Maxwell, and both of us are big fans of John and involved, okay, they are journey focused. Okay, a good leader, it's about the people. It's about the team. Let's take Australians, and I had the privilege to live in South Africa. We love rugby. Okay, a leader is a good coach. A coach will make sure that the team is well positioned, that they have the resources they need to perform, that they have the direction, that they get the guidance to achieve, to win, and to win constantly, and to really look always for the next title, for the next accomplishment. And that, I think, is the main difference between managers, processing, it's about me, and leaders. And again, we have good managers, bad managers, we have excellent leaders, and sometimes we also have awful leaders. And I had the privilege to experience kind of all shades of both categories.
Absolutely. And like you said, I love you put the disclaimer that leader, manager, we're not focusing on that. It's more about the traits of what is an inspiring leader, because we always want to focus on the positive and focusing on that of a truly inspiring leader. And let's talk about role models, right? Let's talk about which leaders left a lasting mark on you and how did shape your leadership style, because I'm hearing that there's been good influence in your journey and hence the reason why that has shaped you, who you are today.
Yeah, and let me actually mention four, and I'll try to be brief because we don't only have limited time. I had the great privilege to be led by a fantastic leader very in my career, someone who unfortunately passed away very, very recently, but he really put a team together, very often of young professionals. I was one of them, very early in my career. He made sure that we had one direction, that we had all the resources that we needed. He motivated us on a daily basis. He fought all the fights, the budget fight, the resource fight, the internal politics. He took care of all these things and really kept all these things away from us and made sure that we could really perform extremely well in our jobs, and that he always had opportunities for us to grow, to actually spread our wings and to get involved in more areas, in other areas, and take on new responsibilities. And that formed me, this kind of empowerment, this kind of helping the team to grow and to flourish and to make experience, to make mistakes. And making mistakes, that's the second leader I would like to mention who influenced me a lot, Jack Welch, the former CEO of General Electric. He preached to his leadership team about the 5 E's. You need to be energetic, you need to have edge, you need to energize, and to have empathy. And there's a fifth one, empathy. Okay, I forgot the fifth one. Five E's. And the beautiful thing is, having worked for GE, it's not just something that he put out on a nice poster that is stuck in the offices. At GE, we really lived it. I've never been surrounded by so many entrepreneurial, that's a 50, entrepreneurial leaders, okay, who were empowered and where it was absolutely okay to make a mistake. Jack Welch, GE, if you don't do anything, you don't make any mistakes. Do something and you will make mistakes, but stand for it, acknowledge that you made a mistake, learn from it, and ideally don't do it again. So that's second. The third leader I would like to mention, and if we have time, we can dive a little bit deeper into the teaching of the one or the other, is Ken Blanchard, another amazing Christian leader. I had the privilege to work with and for Ken Blanchard while I was in South Africa, and he introduced the situational leadership to me, which is really a key for every leader. And I can only really tell everyone who's on this call today, who is remotely interested in leading people, to learn about the situation leadership, because he made it really very clear. It's not about how to lead a person. It's not about leading a team. It's about how do you lead a person related to every single task that you hand over to this individual, because every task requires probably a different leadership style. And that has also formed me a lot. And the last person, which should actually be the first person, is Jesus. Okay, because he really led an amazing life. He really made it never about himself, always about others, and always helping others to become better, healthier in many instances, and to really grow people and help them to maintain and live a better life.
Yeah, I love how amazingly that you've mentioned that each role model and what area of that role model has played a role in your, and sometimes in maybe growing up during our career in professional life, you might not have these role models, but so it was great to see that your thirst or your hunger for personal development that you got because you are in that journey, that you wanted to improve yourself, hence getting connected to Jack's or Ken's or even Jesus' principles and bringing that principles to the world. So I really applaud that. And the person that the next question is going to be one person, the leadership guru who's influenced your life and my life. And I hear that you're going for the next IMC, International Maxwell Conference, is none other than John Maxwell. So I know you've been influenced by John. And what's one principle from him that you've woven into your leadership DNA?
Well, it's almost unfair to down to one principle, because John has shared so many different principles and they're all so applicable. And I just told you earlier, we're just going through Beyond Success again. And every week, like attitude, personal growth, and so on, is just a fantastic principle. But I think the principle that stands out the most and also connects with our theme, one size doesn't fit all, is the law of connection. And what we need to learn as leaders, to really speak the language of the people we want to communicate. We want to communicate to. As I said, everybody has a different culture. Everybody has a different background. And to give an example, I'm just reading an amazing book. Can I advertise a book on this call? Or so this is a book I just grabbed, the culture map from Erin Meyer, and she describes how different people from different backgrounds communicate differently, make decisions, and so on. To give an example, Australia, somebody from Australia talking to someone from India. two completely different backgrounds. Australia are very straightforward, very low context. They say what they mean. Okay, Indians, okay, they're very high context. You need to kind of guess almost what should be said and what you need to read between the lines. So if you are an Australian leader and you have members from India, you need to adapt your communication style to your team members, to actually connect, to listen, and to talk, to speak their language. And if I may give an example, when I was in Switzerland, I took over the customer service department of General Electric. And before I even started, I got into one of my team members. And he said, well, I'm not going to actually be working for you because I was forced to resign. That's quite sad. Why? Well, he wasn't really willing to give me the details. As I found out, okay, he had really messed up. He has really performed very badly. And he was a very passionate football player. When I started my job, he came to me and said, listen, Arnd, what you do here and the way you started this whole adventure here, the journey, actually, I regret that I have to leave. I would like to stay. Is there any chance that you can help me to stay? And I said, René, you play football. Okay. I am the new coach. I walk into the stadium, you walk on the pitch, and the whole audience is booing, is actually whistling, get him out. Okay. If you help me to turn the audience around, as in your colleagues and as in other people, that they applaud and that they make positive comments about you, I do everything possible. Cut a long story short, a week later, a colleague called me and said, what did you do with this guy? He's so different. My boss called me, what did you do with this guy? He's so different. Okay, this guy stayed. Okay, we allowed him to withdraw his resignation. He became one of my deputy team members, and he had a really great career from there moving forward. Why? Because I met him on his turf. I spoke to him about football and about the honor to be on the pitch and to actually get the support from the fans on the stand. And that made him understand and turn around.
Wow, that's an amazing, I would say, journey, and thanks for sharing, Arnd. And because when you highlight that, that actually shows your leadership style and your leadership quality. So, and thank you for that, sharing that influence as well. And love that culture map by Aaron Meyer. So please, everyone gets an opportunity. So just feel free to put whatever information below this live stream in our Legacy X group of the books, because we would love to actually get on board, because exactly like you said, if you don't understand the cultures, how can you actually grow in your leadership? So that's amazing, Arnd. So let's also talk about leadership styles, because that's what we were chatting about. So in your experience, what happens when leaders don't adapt their style to the situation or the people?
Yeah, well, if leaders don't adapt, that's a very good question. And I thought long and hard how I should respond to a question like that. To be honest, if you want to become a leader, or if you are a leader, you need to be the one driving change, not adapting to it. It's your responsibility. A good leader makes out somebody who creates the future, who thinks forward, okay, and who then takes his team on the journey. If you claim to be a leader and you struggle to adapt to change, I don't know how to say it, but you should think twice about the direction you're taking. I would really encourage you to think long and hard if leading is really something that is part of your DNA. We need to adapt to change as leaders. And as I said, it's not only about adapting, we need to drive the change. If you don't adapt, what happens? Okay, you will be overtaken by the future. If you don't adapt to your people, you will create very highly likely frustrated team members who just don't know how to communicate to you. You will send them signals they don't understand. You're not going to head in one direction because they get in all kind of other directions, and you most probably will face quite a turnaround when it comes to your team. So adapting to change, ideally driving change, is one of the essential skills of a leader, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. It's change is going to be a huge, I would say, muscle and change management that leaders have to adapt, especially in this day and age. So thanks for sharing that, Arnd.
And
So let's talk about.
and just also again to quote John Maxwell. John Maxwell says the challenge of leadership is to create change and facilitate growth. And I think when we talk about John Maxwell's key messages, okay, it's another key message. The challenge of leadership is to create change, not to adapt, to create change and to facilitate growth. And that's, I think, describes it perfectly.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's great. So let's talk about this global perspective, right? That you've led teams across continents, cultures. So how does cultural diversity shape the way we need to lead? And I know you shared a bit from the book, but this is now going back from your personal experience of your journey, right? In Germany, from South Africa, and now in Middle East.
Yeah. Well, going back to Jack Welch's 5 E's, and now I'm going to get all the 5 E's right. Energetic, energizing, enthusiastic, edge. And the fifth one, which is the most important one when it comes to cross-culture leadership, is empathy. You need really to find a way to relate to the people that you talk to and to really speak their language. And I've used many positive examples, but let me share an example where I really messed up. I was supposed to join the company I worked for in South Africa, German background. And I was introduced to two of my team members. And we spoke about the project that I was about to introduce, which was a business process re-engineering project, SAP implementation, and so on. And I said, the main objective of this project is to increase productivity, which every German would understand. Well, not every German, but Germans in the marketplace would understand what it is. And those guys asked me, what does it mean, productivity? And I said, well, that you can do more work with less people. And as I said it, okay, I saw the temperature of these guys were changing and the mouth was going down. And I said, well, actually, it's like about doing more work with the same number of people. So kind of, okay. So we left it, okay. And 2 days later, I was called into the office of the CEO and the HR representative was there. And they said, why did you tell our people that we will retrench people, that we will retrench staff? And I said, I never said that we will retrench staff. I said, no, you spoke to those guys and you told them that we will do more work with less people, that we are retrenching. Okay, so for me, with the German background, increasing productivity is a good thing, right? We all want to be more productive, but in this specific context, it was something extremely negative, interpreted completely differently, and I didn't have a good start in my role, to be honest. So empathy and really understand the temperature in the room. And also, again, Australia versus India communication, high context versus low context. Okay, trying to read between the lines what is said and what actually has been said.
Wow, that's gold right there. And I'm sure it'll be a different conversation altogether. We should on the live stream of how that experience came to being. But that's great, because culture, and especially someone with your experience, and as you share, that's real gold in it. And definitely we want to get into it. And also, you mentioned about Jack Welch's 5 E's, but also the 20-70-10 in action, right? So for leaders who are unfamiliar with Jack Welch's 20-70-10 rule, how do you recommend applying it without creating fear or division?
Yeah. Let me just add something to the last comment. Okay, I am still very much on the learning process when it comes to empathy. Being a German and being my age, okay, I'm not the best listener. And I know that my wife is on the call. She will already have been smiling while she was listening to me. I'm still really, really have to learn when it comes to empathy and to read the temperature in the room. She's much better with this. Okay, anyway, 20-70-10 principle. So what Jack Welch didn't say, and just to clean up a rumor, he didn't say 10% of the staff members are bad and they have to be fired. And sometimes when you Google Jack Welch, that's a statement. Not at all. What Jack Welch did say is that within your team, you should identify the top 20% when it comes to performance. Those guys who perform better than everybody else in your team. You should also identify the bottom 10. Those, in comparison to their colleagues, do not perform as well. Doesn't mean that the top 20 are high flyers. They're just better than the others. Bottom 10 doesn't mean they are useless, they're whatever. They just don't perform as well as the others. And the 70%, by the way, he called the vital 70. And make sure that the vital 70 are well led, that they know what they're doing, and so on. But as a good leader within GE, make sure that you have a plan to help the top 20 to flourish, to take on new responsibilities, maybe to give them a new role, to train them, and to start growing their career. Because if you keep top 20 too long in the same role, they're going to get bored, they're going to get disillusioned, and there's a chance they will leave. So you need to help them to keep going. In terms of bottom 10, it's your fault as a leader if these guys perform lower than everybody else. What do you do as a leader to either train them up and to help them to perform better, to give them better resources so that they can do their job in a better way? Maybe they're in the wrong role. Maybe they are in the wrong role. Okay, so it's your responsibility as a leader to make sure that you put them into a role that works for them and where they can flourish. Very worst case, if you've done everything possible with the bottom 10 and nothing works, okay, there might be a point where you have to go different paths. But this is really the very last resort. So top 20, make sure that they grow. Bottom 10, make sure that they get into a role where they can perform. And that's the 20-70-10 principle, which is absolutely amazing. And again, I can highly recommend every leader to look into that and to see if they can use it in their respective environment. And the other thing he said, Jack Welch said, when you do a performance assessment where you talk about where do you fit in, never be a surprise to the team member. Okay, performance assessments is some formal appointment once a year, twice a year, where you confirm what you and your team member have been talking about already throughout the year. It's not 6 months and then suddenly you have a meeting with a staff member and you tell them, I think that you really didn't perform very well. Like, what do you mean? I thought you're very happy with me because you keep smiling. Okay, also a very important leadership principle. Your team members should always know where they stand when it comes to their performance.
Wow, that was, I think, the very well summarized version of the 20-70-10 and well put, yes, and glad you could ensure that there's no misunderstanding of that 10% as well, and as well as that 20%. But thanks, Arnd, for that. And now let's move into leading through change, which you mentioned about many leaders struggle during seasons of transition. So how can adaptability help a leader thrive instead of just surviving in change? Because in this day and age where with AI and with everything coming through, how can adaptability help a leader thrive instead of just surviving? So thrive than just surviving.
Well, as I said, you have to change. You have to adapt. And let's go back into Jesus' times. Okay, the Roman army was the most influential army was probably in the world. And now put yourself into the feet of a Roman leader. Okay, and they start now going to battle. And the leader got the job, okay, fight and win the battle. Okay, and as they proceed and they head towards the enemy, somebody tells them, by the way, there's another army coming from the left-hand side unexpectedly. Now just imagine if a leader does what some bad leaders do. Said, no, sorry, my instruction, my job description clearly says we need to fight and walk this direction. Okay, it doesn't include this other army. Okay, the fight will be over very quickly. So as a leader, you constantly need to have your eyes open and you need to adapt to the circumstances. Otherwise, chances are you won't survive. And the business out there, the marketplace, is often cutthroat. Okay, so you need to adapt to your circumstances. You need to keep your eyes open. You need to consult people around you, because sometimes we can't see everything. We all have our blind spots. Of course. Like, leader is not some visionary who's got his eyes and ears everywhere, but a good leader also surrounds himself with a team, helping them to see what is happening and also to listen and to be open to get input from other people. That's again where maybe the manager sometimes is different from a leader. Manager sometimes, from my experience, managers often claim, I know it all. Okay, and then some junior comes like, but I have a good idea. Like, what do you know? Okay, I've been here for 20 years and you only have been for 1 year. How can you possibly tell me how we can do things better? A leader if he gets somebody like this. Amazing, okay, because you have only been here for 1 year. You look at the situation with a completely different view. I love to hear from you. What do you think we can improve? That's a different attitude, and that also helps then the leader to adapt to the circumstances. And again, John Maxwell says change is inevitable. Inevitable. Do I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, inevitable.
Change is a given. Growth is optional. Change is happening. Okay, we cannot stop the dinosaurs. Maybe try to avoid change. Okay, and well, we see where they left. Okay, change is happening all the time. And as a leader, and I'm sorry, I repeat myself, it's not only about adapting to change, driving change. And to drive change, listen to other people, get input, and then give a clear direction.
Absolutely. Well said, especially, growth is optional, but change is inevitable. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, because you're all
Inevitable.
about leave a legacy, right? So, when you think about leadership and legacy that you want to leave behind on, what do you hope people will say about your influence? So, what is the legacy what comes to your mind when you think about legacy, and especially with what you're doing, with your experience and
Yeah.
leading change?
Yeah. Well, Joby, I'm still very much still work in progress. Although I've reached a certain age where you think, he's kind of done it all. I'm still work in progress. I'm far from being imperfect. But if people one day, or maybe even today, already talk about my leadership, I hope what they're going to say will be, it was never about him. It was about us. It was about the people. It was about the customers. It's about the partners. It was about suppliers. But it wasn't like, okay, I want to shine, I want to be famous, I want to be whatever, because that's really not my way of leading. At least I'm trying not to lead like this. It's about, I want to help people working with me, that they shine, that they can flourish, that they can grow. And that satisfies me. That brings me joy. The second legacy, I hope that people will say growth and innovation was his middle name. I'm very passionate about growth, and growth means growing of businesses, growing of people, growing of relationships, and innovation, change, new things, new ways of doing things, new technologies, new processes. That also really drives me. And I hope some people, maybe a few people, but some people will say, Arnd helped me a little bit to become a better person and to have a better life.
Wow, that's very, very, I would say inspirational, Arnd, especially because I've seen that in action, how you lead your teams and the joy you get when you see that there's one more salvation coming through. There's more people coming to Christ, and it's always about, like you said, others, and less is about you. So I see that in action. So really true, inspiring leader that you are, Arnd. And that's also because you have that experience moving from marketplace to kingdom impact, right? So you've blended marketplace success with faith-driven leadership. So how do you see those two worlds strengthening each other? And someone who is stuck in the corporate rat race, how do they ignite their driven leadership?
And I was, as you call it, stuck in the rat race for many decades. But look, if you are a believer and you're in the marketplace, okay, one thing we need to realize, we have an amazing opportunity. God has given us an amazing opportunity by being exactly in the role that we are. There's a reason why you have this job at this stage in this company, surrounded by these colleagues and this boss and these customers and the suppliers. Andy Stanley, who some of you might know, quite a famous preacher, pastor, and leader of a church in North America. He wrote a course called The Game Plan. And in the game plan, he actually explains that 2 days challenges are preparation for tomorrow's opportunities. And I repeat that because that sentence has also had a big influence in my life. 2 days challenges are preparation for tomorrow's opportunities. And especially as people of faith in the marketplace, we have a daily opportunity to bring Jesus into our work, to really display Christ, the way we treat people, we handle situations, we communicate with other people, and it's not only an opportunity, but also it's a bit of a responsibilities. Job, you mentioned earlier before we started going live that the number of Christians in Australia is in decline, and it's not only Australia, globally. In many countries, Christianity is on the decline. That's very often because those other people look at us Christians and they don't see Jesus reflected. Sometimes we Christians are the least patient one. We are the ones that get upset the fastest, that don't act the way we were taught. And I think that's really something we just need to be aware of. There's an opportunity and there's a responsibility attached to it. And yeah, to everyone who is currently in the rat race and feels frustrated, you don't like your boss, you don't like the job, please remember, okay, God put you into this place, at this point of time, into this company, because today's challenges are preparation for your future and for future opportunities in your life. Look at it like this, and you will have a different attitude when you come to work in the morning and when you go back home in the evening.
Love it, love it. And as you share that, I see that as your final parting message. But I have one more last question: is what would be your advice to our emerging leaders? Like, imagine if you were directly speaking to a young leader today. What's that one habit or one advice that that they should develop to be a effective, I would say, inspirational leader?
Yeah.
What would be one?
It's actually two that I wrote down. The one I just mentioned, Andy Stanley. Okay, today's challenges are preparation for tomorrow's opportunities, which will help you in many situations when you just feel you hit rock bottom. And the other one is, again, quoting John Maxwell: keep growing and work on your personal growth. It is essential, it's important. I'm, for myself, must say I neglected personal growth far too often. As I said, I love innovation and I like to learn things, but be intentional about your personal growth. Sit down and put some targets on a piece of paper. Decide on areas that are relevant in your life. John Maxwell told us at the last conference, he decided for himself there are 6 areas in his life that are relevant for him. And he is intentional about growing in those 6 areas on a daily basis. It blends out a lot of other things, but in these 6 categories, leadership being one of them, of course, okay, he is intentional of growing himself personally every single day. And that's, I think, key. Keep growing, work on your personal growth. And once you become a leader, okay, make sure that you change your attitude slightly and that you help other people who are you're responsible for to grow and follow your example.
Well said. Amazing, amazing advice, Arnd. So before we finish off for today's amazing live stream, how can people get in touch with you? What's happening in Arnd's world with Rock? Is there anything that you would want to share with our amazing team that we're doing and please feel free to put all your links below this live stream as well so they can get in touch with you. So what's happening in Arnd's world and how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm going to put my contact details into the group. I think maybe that's the easiest rather than mentioning them. And I think maybe because you opened the door of the hooligan history, so maybe I should finish by just explaining, okay, what does it do with me and hooligan? So when I was a tween, in my late teen and early tweens, I decided that my purpose in life was my football club in Cologne. My belonging was my fan club. And what I really enjoyed doing is to cause as much trouble as possible to the police and to the fans of the opposing club. So I had my fair share of getting beaten, arrested, and these kind of things. Never went to jail, touch wood, but it was very close. But that was really my life. And first thing that happened is that God intervened, although I was not a Jesus follower at all. I was hostile to Christianity, but God, of course, knew me already, and he introduced me to an angel who kind of started bringing more sense to my life. And I've got the great privilege to celebrate the 30th wedding anniversary with her next month. And she already helped me a little bit to get away from this hooliganism, but I was still far away. And then somebody invited me to Alpha. And I attended the Alpha course. And I was able to ask many questions. I get a lot of answers. And the pastor of this church eventually led me to Christ. And I asked myself back then, and we talk, 2002, something around there. So like really many years ago. I promised myself back then I will invest as much time as possible into this Alpha ministry to help other people who are in the same situation or similar situation as I was, hostile to Christianity or just not knowing what Christianity actually can mean, to give them an opportunity to learn that there is only one truth. So that's how I changed from a hooligan to, I wouldn't call it holy man, but somebody who is maybe a bit more holy than he was certainly 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yeah. And now speaking to Petra, your wife, and now knowing that she's the rock that actually
Yeah.
you from hooliganism to being a transformational leader. Thank you so much for pouring so much of insight into this conversation, and for your heart. I know we've met a couple of times online, and hence the reason why I was like, who do I bring to speak life into my Legacy X group? And your face, like Holy Spirit brought me your face, and I said, I want to speak to Arnd, and I want Arnd to share his journey with us. And you just shown us that leadership isn't just about rigid formulas. It's about connecting. It's about adapting, and it's about leading with courage. So, friends, Legacy X leaders, if you've taken one idea, please just don't keep it to yourself. Apply it, share it, and multiply it, because it's all about multiplication, and that's how we leave a legacy that outlives us. So thank you so much, Arnd, from Dubai, all the way from Dubai, and I think you're the first, I would say, leader from Middle East. So well done. You got a huge tag, and I can't wait to meet you. I'm sure we will have opportunities to meet together, Arnd and Petra as well. But thank you so much from Legacy X family.
Thank you so much, Jobby from Melbourne. Greetings to everyone who was on the call. And yeah, as I said, I will post my contact details in the group, and feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, and I come back if you want me to one day share more.
Absolutely. We need to deep dive into that hooliganism story.
No, not about that part. Let's talk more about the later years, please.
The transformational years. Thank you so much, Arnd. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jobby. Wonderful. Bye.